Thank you, Ann. I'd like to welcome everyone to the March 3rd, 2021 meeting of the Planning Commission for the town of Hilton Head Island. Want to welcome any council members who may be joining us and any members of the public as well as staff. Ann, are we in compliance with FOIA?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Would you please call the roll?
Yes. Alan Perry,
Here.
John Campbell,
Here.
Levon Stevens. Is Levon with us? Oh, he must be.
He is not.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Leslie McGowan,
Here.
Mark O'Neill,
Here.
Mike Scanlon. I think we're missing Mike. Stephen Alfred,
Here.
Todd Theodore,
Here.
and Peter Christian.
Here.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, does staff have any changes to the agenda?
No, we don't.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve the agenda from one of the commissioners? Mark, I saw your hand. Alan, you were quicker than Leslie. I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Ann, would you please call the roll? If you have any additions or corrections, please pipe up at that time. Ann?
Alan Perry,
Approve.
John Campbell,
Approve.
Leslie McGowan,
Approve.
Mark O'Neill,
Approve.
Stephen Alfred,
Approve.
Todd Theodore,
Approve.
and Peter Christian.
Approved. And let's
Thank
note, we welcome the Vice Chairman, Levon, and he is now on the line. And next item on our agenda is our meeting minutes of February 17th, 2021. Can I have a motion to approve? Leslie, is there a second? Stephen, I have a motion and a second to approve our minutes of our February 17th, 2021 meeting. If you have an addition or a correction to the minutes, when Ann calls your name, you can pipe up at that time or just give your yay or nay. Ann, please call the roll.
Alan Perry,
Approve.
John Campbell,
Approve.
Levon Stevens,
Approve.
Leslie McGowan,
Approve.
Mark O'Neill,
Approve.
Stephen Alfred,
Approve.
Todd Theodore. Todd, you're on mute.
Approved.
Thank you. And Mr. Christian.
Approve.
Thank you.
Okay, appearance by citizens. Ann, do you have a comment?
Yes, I do. Public comments concerning agenda items were to be submitted electronically via the open town hall portal. There were no comments submitted on the portal. Citizens were provided the option to give public comment during the meeting by phone, but there were no requests to give public comment by phone.
Okay, we have one item of unfinished business. We have review of the town council's changes related to the flood zone LMO amendments. And Shari is going to update us. And I understand the subcommittee of the town council met on this last week, and Shari is going to update us on their deliberation.
Yes, sir. At the town council meeting on March 2nd of 2021, town council did vote unanimously to support the staff recommendation of requiring the calculation of building height to be measured from 13 feet above mean sea level using NAVD 88. And at this time, or per state code, we are required to bring this back to the planning commission for review and comment. And at this time, I'm able to entertain any questions that you have.
All right, Ann, if you would go through the roll, and if the commissioners have a question for Shari, they can present it when their name is called.
Yes, sir. Todd Theodore.
I have no comments. Thank you, Sherry.
Alan Perry.
No comments.
Levon Stevens.
No comments.
Leslie McGowan.
No comments.
Mark O'Neill.
Guess I should have been there, but I would like to hear a little bit about what the discussion was compared to what we had recommended.
Yes, sir. We presented both of the recommendations to town council for consideration. I spoke on behalf of the staff proposal of the 13 feet, and both Mr. Christian and Mr. Theodore were there to discuss the recommendation of the 14-foot elevation.
You approve.
Stephen Alfred,
Yes, as a practical matter, do we have any choice here as to what we do?
Yes, we do, Stephen. We can vote no.
And then what happens?
Then that recommendation goes to the town council and they vote however which way they would like to vote.
Okay.
okay, John Campbell,
No comments.
and Peter Christian.
And of course, I have a comment. Sherry, this is basically tied to the height of the building, the measurement from base flood elevation. So we maintain that 35 feet and keep it in the same parameters as we presently have. And our concern was the flood elevation. And there is no way to keep the first floor elevation at 14 and still measure the height of the building from the 13?
Unfortunately, the Planning Commission needs to look at the LMO amendment and can provide input to Town Council for the lowest floor requirement, but the lowest floor requirement is a municipal code item and not a land management ordinance item.
All right, so if Town Council passes this, any new construction or any construction where a home was destroyed more than 50%, their new base flood elevation for their first floor would be at 13 instead of at 14. Is that correct?
It's not the base flood elevation that will be at 14. The base flood elevation is determined by the FEMA flood insurance rate maps, but the lowest floor requirement would be required to be at the new 13 feet, which is equivalent to the old 14 feet.
Okay, and the old 14 feet was 14 plus 1, so it was really at 15, or it was 13 plus 1, it was really at 14?
The old requirement was that homes be constructed to the base flood elevation plus 1. In most cases in the town, that is equivalent to the old 15 feet or the new 14 feet.
All right, so for practical purposes, cutting through all of the numbers, if this is approved, a new home could be built at 14 instead of at 15.
That is correct, but it would be at 13 instead of 14 feet because we will be using the NAVD 88 datum.
Yeah, so
But once again, the lowest floor requirement is part of the municipal code changes and not the land management ordinance changes, which is the information that's before you today.
yeah, I understand all that. But if this is approved, are you telling us now that it's actually going to be 2 feet lower?
It
So-
will be 1 foot lower.
Only one, so it's going to go from 15 to 14.
It's going to go from 14 to 13. We would like to use NAVD 88, which is the reference on the new maps.
Okay, I'm trying to cut through all of the mumbo jumbo, Sherry.
Yes, sir.
Now, presently, we're at 14 plus 1. Is that correct?
That is correct, using NGVD 29.
Okay, so under the present requirements, LMO, flood maps, whatever, if someone wanted to build a new home today, what would they build to? What elevation? What would be the first floor?
If they are in an area with a base flood elevation of 14 feet, they would be required to build to 15 feet.
Okay.
Once again, that's a municipal code requirement.
Peter, let's ask it a different way. If there was a house that was built last year and a new house going up right next to it, and they're both completed, if we're standing there looking at it, and we're looking at the bottom floor, is one going to be higher or lower than the other?
No, sir. If we adopt this elevation,
Right.
the
I just
maximum
wanna
building height is still going to be 35 feet.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, but that's not my question, Alan.
Okay.
I'm not, I'm not, I have no argument and no concern about the building height. That's immaterial. It's how it's affecting the first floor elevation. And from what I'm getting from Shari, and unless she tells me I'm absolutely off base, we're going from a requirement for a new home to be built at 15 feet down to 13 feet.
No.
No.
What she's saying is, under the current measurement, it's 13, but compared to the previous datum, it would be 14. So it's 1 foot lower than the original.
It's 1 foot lower than what's required today per building code, which is base flood plus 1. However, we are removing the calculation of building height from the base flood elevation and measuring it from sea level to 13 feet. So the building height measurement remains exactly the same, and we are now marrying up the building height requirement and the lowest floor requirement to the same elevation. They are currently 1 foot difference. Lowest floor at 15, building height measurement at 14. We are now marrying them both to 14 feet, which is now 13 feet.
All right,
So we're
so
not changing anything with the building height requirement, but we are effectively, the way the code is written right now, marrying up those two elevations. So they will be measured from the same height.
okay, and again, my concern is not the building height. I get it. My concern is the first floor elevation above mean sea level.
Yes, sir. And the first floor elevation of above mean sea level has gone to the first reading of town council yesterday, and they have supported staff's recommendation of the lowest floor requirement at 13 feet,
Okay, and
which is 1 foot below the current requirement.
which is only 1 foot below the current requirement.
Yes, sir.
Well, why is it 14 plus 1, which gives you 15? Or are we measuring it from a different point and we're getting to the same elevation?
Maybe it might be better to understand it in this way. A house that's currently in a base flood elevation of 14 feet could be going down to a base flood elevation of 7 feet. So if we leave the regulations the same at the BFE plus 1, they will only have to build to 8 feet above mean sea level. We are requesting, or staff has recommended to town council, that the lowest floor be elevated higher than the minimum standard of the base flood plus 1. So we're bringing everybody back off the ground, no longer using the flood maps as the basis for what your lowest floor requirement is, and have requested a static lowest floor requirement of 13 feet in any property in the town, for any property in the town, new construction or substantial improvement. So we are actually going well above right now what would be the BFE plus 1 using those new maps if we use them as our base datum to make these determinations. The effectiveness being the building height and the lowest floor requirements will no longer be 1 foot offset, and the lowest floor requirements will be similar to those before the building code changed July 1st, 2016 to require the base flood elevation plus 1 foot.
All right, well, let me ask Alan's question in a different way. If there is a house built under the present code and there's a house right next to it built to the new code, what would be the difference in the first floor elevation on those two homes?
The new first floor requirement will be equivalent to that before July 1st of 2016. It will be at 13 feet. So yes, the lowest floor will be 1 foot below the house next door. However, our local builders understand that anything below that lowest floor also has to be constructed of flood damage resistant materials. Right now, that's typically pressure treated lumber. Right now, most builders that we deal with already raise the lowest floor up an additional foot to keep the floor system out of that area that requires the pressure treated material, so that way they can save the cost on the construction of the lowest floor. So right now we do see a lot of floors at 16 foot plus to take that into consideration.
Okay, but that would be an optional requirement of the property owner to do that. It's not according to town code. Town code would say you can build it at 13.
And yes, that is
Peter,
correct.
I see your point in terms of if the sea level rises a foot, we're 2 feet farther behind than we were when we had this code to begin with.
Yeah, my concern, Mark, is that these maps are based on pre-Matthew data. We know that the sea level is going up, and that may change. And I don't know what's causing it. I'm not purporting to say what's causing it. I just know what I see with my own eyes, and we're going in the wrong direction in my opinion.
Yeah, I think you made that point at the first meeting, and I think it's a good one. The question is the one Steve asked, which is what are our options here?
I mean, the town council is going to do what the town council is going to do, and obviously the home builders were on the line, and they were supporting the lower elevation because it's easier for them to build at that elevation, less costly. Because they don't have to put in additional fill dirt or raise it up, put another cinder block or two underneath the foundation. But those couple of inches, make the difference between a home flooding sometimes and not.
I see the point.
And I know they're tying this to the building height, and I have no quarrel with that. What I'm concerned about is that the next time these flood maps come out and they're based on after post-Matthew data, we may be very well back here and we have all of these homes that are below standard, not above. Because how often did these come out, Sherry? And I know that we've been waiting for these flood maps forever.
Typically, they're supposed to be on a 5-year cycle. Obviously, for our community, that is not the case. In late 2018, the state coordinator started the scoping process for what will now be drainage basin-wide maps and not county-based. But there has been no momentum on that project. So according to FEMA, they're on a 5-year cycle, but that has not been the case for our community.
But keep in mind, Peter, that the town has overridden what FEMA is recommending. They've raised it up above that. So even to some degree, if FEMA recalculates, the town is already, in some instances, several feet above what FEMA has calculated.
Yeah, I understand that, Todd, but it's still going down.
Well, but and Sherry can correct me if I'm wrong. Supposedly, this recalculation that they did was based on LIDAR topography, so in terms of their calculations, it's more accurate to a higher degree of detail than the old maps because they were done through photometric measures, and they don't necessarily follow contours of topography. So to some degree, the data that was used by FEMA was much more detailed, to a huge higher level of detail than the old maps that were done.
Yes.
Understood. But the first floor elevation is still going down, Todd, by a foot.
Right. But I'm not sure we ourselves have enough scientific knowledge to be able to determine whether that's a significant problem or not. I mean, I guess to some degree, staff is recommending that 13 is the way to go.
Okay.
Is it a fair comment that a significant motivator of the staff's recommendation is the view of the building trades?
The staff's recommendation before you is for the height or the calculation of height. And the staff's recommendation for the calculation of building height was to keep the building height the same as it is today. The lowest floor requirement is based on multiple different things that we've looked into. The biggest motivator is that we do not want to use the flood insurance rate maps as the basis for our determination of lowest floor. If we don't consider something, then the lowest floor requirements in areas that we have that have repeated flood losses will be able to be built at grade. So we looked into a lot of different areas. We looked at repeated flooding. We looked at historical data. And the motivation is based on looking at our community as a whole. And the recommendation was made by the building community, and we chose to support that recommendation.
Jerry, did you include, part of Peter's concern is what has happened in the past in Hilton Head Plantation. Did you include kind of floodways into that category?
Our entire area is a coastal study. We do not have floodways.
Would you consider the problem that happened in Hilton Head Plantation a few years ago that was a floodway kind of concern?
I'm sorry. No, sir, we do not have floodways. So no, it was not a floodway concern. It was a concern with a storm drainage issue that was directly related to some issues at a pump station. So that is issues that are not modeled on these flood maps.
Yeah, and basically it was the Jarvis Creek pump station was down, and it was a bed liner that got caught into an intake. And regardless of whether the bed liner would have been there, if it had been a higher storm and we lost power, the pumps would have been out anyway, and they would have pulled the generator because the generator would have been underwater as well. And there's not enough gravity feed there, Todd, especially on a storm surge, and that exacerbated it further. And again, we're in some of the highest ground. I couldn't imagine what would happen down at Sea Pines or some of the lower lying areas.
Well, but to some degree, Hilton Head Plantation relies on mechanical means to drain, that area out of the.
Well, and there are sections of Wexford, has the same issue. They have a pump station as well that does several properties, and they would be in the same, no pun intended, boat. If the power went down, those mechanical means are useless.
Our stormwater department can give you some additional information, but there were a lot of lessons learned about the pump stations from Hurricane Matthew, and they have spent a lot of money on improvements to those pump stations. They can give you a better idea of what those improvements have been, but there have been numerous updates and modifications done at the Jarvis Creek pump station as a result of the concerns that happened during Hurricane Matthew.
Yeah, and Sherry, I'm well aware of that, and I even wrote a complimentary letter to hopefully get the town a recognition for all of that work. However, all that work, all the work in the world isn't going to beat a storm surge and several inches of rain on top of it. It's still going to flood. I mean, we live where we live, and the elevations are what they are. And you get a 20-foot storm surge, and you get 18 inches of rain on a high tide. There are going to be first floors that are underwater.
But aren't we? What you're bringing up, Peter, is not on the table right now for.
Understood, Todd. I just feel it needs to be appropriately aired. So God forbid it never happens, and I'm betting it doesn't. But we all live in this area. We know the number of hurricanes that we had last year, and again, thank God they traveled into the Gulf for the most part, and we had a couple of glancing blows. But now they're predicting that hurricane season may start as early as May this year, and I'm very conscious of it because I deal with it on a first-hand basis, as does the town staff. All right, any other comments or questions on this item? All right, so at this point, our options are to either make a motion to agree with the Public Planning Committee's recommendation, or to disagree with the Public Planning Commission's recommendation. Is that where we are?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, the chair will entertain a motion either way. Go ahead, Todd.
I make a motion to approve the, is it planning committee's recommendation or is it council's recommendation?
Is there a second? Todd's motion.
I'll second it.
All right, Alan seconds. Okay, and if you would call the roll and yay or nay, and if you have a comment at that time.
Alan Perry,
Yay.
John Campbell,
Yay.
Levon Stevens,
I approve. This is a little bit out of my area, but I trust the work that the staff has done, and hearing that they also have input from the Builders Association and people in the community. I just want to make that note for the record. I trust the work that we've done on this so far, so I approve.
Leslie McGowan,
Approve.
Mark O'Neill,
Approve.
Stephen Alfred,
No.
Todd Theodore,
Approve.
Peter Christian.
No.
Okay.
All right, the motion passes. All right, new business, we have none. Commission business. I know that the CIP committee met, Todd?
Yeah, we had our initial meeting, which everybody was reorientation with the staff's outline for 2022's CIP, and our next meeting is on the 11th, where we'll begin to go through and try to finalize the listing.
Great. Leslie, I know you have a meeting coming up, do you not?
Yeah, we have a meeting on Monday. It's to discuss with the design review board some LMO changes that they are interested in seeing us consider.
Okay. LeVon, I believe the Gullah Geechee Task Force did have a meeting?
Yes, sir. We had a meeting on Monday, and we're looking forward to getting more information on the historic overlay district. It is ongoing at this point. That is the biggest thing on our agenda.
Yeah, LeVon, did one of the town committees discuss I believe it was the Public Planning Committee, the same that discussed our last issue, talked about family compounds. Do you have any insight on that particular item?
There was a lot of discussion about the family compounds and family subdivision. I think that staff still has some work to do as far as definitions, as far as who can take advantage of those and who classifies as a native or a Gullah, a part of the Gullah culture. The home occupation was another item that came up and had a lot of discussion. That was not something that the task force had asked the Public Planning Committee to look at, but nonetheless, it came up with a lot of discussion in our meeting on Monday.
Thank you for that, LeVon. Alan, anything from rules? I always ask.
Nope.
Okay. And staff report.
Yes, sir. Just as we noted before the meeting, we are going to be canceling the March 17th meeting and having a special meeting on March 24th, and that'll give you plenty of time to review the CIP committee's recommendations and be able to vote on that priority list for fiscal year 22. So I'll send that information out shortly.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Ann. Any other business to come before the commission? LeVon?
I just wanted to go back and ask the question. I'm sure that we are aware of that, but we are well within the time to make the deadline for this flood elevation consideration, right? This has to go back to the Public Planning Committee.
It goes to the town council, I believe. I think they had a first reading of the town council. It was approved at the first reading. It goes to the town council at their next meeting, I believe. Jennifer's shaking her head yes. And then it'll most likely be approved at that meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Did I speak out of turn there, Jennifer?
Perfect.
Okay. All right, any other business to come before the commission? All right, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn. LeVon, you got it. All right. Thank you all for your hard work. Appreciate it. Take care.